Welcome back to episode 17 of Beyond the Tour. As always, joined with me today is Luke. How are you?
Jake, heading into the business end of the golf season now. There's plenty of good golf around and ready to dive into it with you today.
Agreed. Those leaderboards, particularly on the LIV and PGA Tours, were packed. So it was pretty interesting. The only problem was they were all finished at the same time.
Yeah, it was hard to keep a finger on the pulse of everything that was happening. It requires multiple devices, more than one set of eyes, really.
So on the PGA Tour, Hideki Matsuyama beat Xander, Viktor Hovland, Scotty's fell in there at 14 in fourth place as well. At LIV, Brooks won in a playoff over Rambo. Crack was up there. Leishman finished pretty high as well. That was a really good event. And then on the LPGA Tour, it's the Scottish Open, won by Lauren Coughlin of NLU fame.
Yeah, the PGA Tour, FedEx and Jude look like it might be a bit of a snoozer there with Hideki so far in front, but he created a bit of drama coming down the stretch, and who could have scripted a better finish for LIV, really, having the two big dogs duke it out in a playoff.
Agreed, absolutely. So let's kick it off with, I guess we'll focus on the PGA Tour first. So yeah, as you said, Hideki made it hard for himself, but he finished very strong, birdieing the last two holes and really cemented the win there. But across those two particular tours, or LIV's not a tour, but across LIV, PGA Tour, and even the US Amateur, the leaders coming into the final day all stumbled a little bit, with Rambo leading the majority of the...
No, not easy to win. And as you say, leaders came into the final round with a type of lead you'd think they would close it out, particularly with Hideki holding a 5-shot lead coming into Sunday, and he was still 5 ahead with 7 holes to play. You would think that with his caliber and experience, that's a simple closeout. But I don't know, he looked a little rattled after the rules controversy on 12. What was your sort of take on that?
I didn't see too much of it, to be honest. I think I was still sleeping at that time, and maybe I switched on the LIV stuff, so I didn't actually even see the rules controversy. I didn't switch across to the PGA Tour until LIV finished.
Just fixing the pitch mark and step down on the green, and there was an argument as to whether that was improving the state in which he found the course, because he'd missed his approach shot off the green and went up and repaired a pitch mark on the green. The rules officials approached him as he was on the 12th hole. This happened back on the 7th hole. Eventually, no penalty was assessed, but he then goes on to shoot 4 over through the next 4 holes, including that double on 15, which saw him lose the lead to Viktor Hovland. So he trailed by 1 with 3 to play after being ahead by 5 with 7 to play. So it was a pretty dramatic turnaround.
Yeah, it certainly was. Like, he was striping it most of the weekend, or pretty much all week. I'll tell you what, we speak about it often. Just the putter, Hideki's one of those guys that if it wasn't for his streaky putting, he would be like a world beater.
Yeah, and you saw that play out on the back 9 on Sunday, where particularly through that stretch of holes where he went 4 over on the back 9, he just couldn't make a putt. And then those clutch birdies on 17 and 18 to secure the win. He found his putter, which had gone stone cold only a matter of holes before. Although I would say those birdies in the final 2 holes really were set up by wonderful approach shots, and iron play just really came up clutch.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's his second win for the year. He's been in very good form. He had 1 or 2 top 10s in the majors, bronze medal at the... Yep. So he has returned to the form that he's shown previously. Other contenders, it's good to see Viktor back in contention. He's Mr. August, it looks like.
That's right, yeah. I'm a big fan of Vic, and so when he goes, it makes me happy. Obviously, a defending FedEx Cup champion and won back-to-back events in the BMW Championship and Tour Championship last year. So he loves this time of year, clearly, and as you say, it was good to see him return to form. He's been in the wilderness a little bit this year, but I think world golf is better for having Viktor Hovland at the top of leaderboards.
It is, absolutely. Xander was obviously another one. He had a T2 finish there as well. Strong all weekend. Maybe didn't look like he was going to sort of win until that sort of last few particular holes. But yeah, the leaderboard there was pretty indicative of the entire year, to be honest. Clark up there, who hadn't been in great form through the middle and towards the end of the year, but he seems to have turned it around a little bit now.
Yeah, I was surprised
just reminding
to see
everybody how good he was.
Yeah, I was surprised to see his name up there, to be honest. But as you say, Xander looks in such ominous form. He's probably really the main contender for beating Schauffele, if he's not too far back already. And his putting stroke and his short game, they're just sublime. You look at the way he putts the ball. You see that mark on his ball. It just runs end over end. It rolls beautifully. And he just finds a way out. So he's in exceptional form at the moment, shooting 7 under in that final round there, which included a lip out for birdie on 18. Just shows how hot he can really go.
Yep. Scotty in 4th, and Sammy Burns played well, but Nick Dunlap is the other one. He had to make that par putt on the last to stay in the top 50 and make it through to this week. Would have been relatively controversial from my perspective had he missed out, because he had that win as an amateur at the 8s. It was the 18th. No, it was Amex, wasn't it? Yes.
Got no point.
Which you would. It's a case that doesn't happen very often, but maybe that's now that it has happened and it got so close to being an issue here. Maybe that's a little hole that the tour needs to plug for upcoming seasons.
Yeah, they won't, because it wasn't an issue. We've seen from the tour plenty of times before, they only act well and truly after the patient's dead. So I don't expect we'll see that. But you're right, the golfing gods smiled on Dunlap, and I think justice prevailed in the end to see him inside the top 50.
And for the Aussies, Scotty is in T18, Minwoo and Jason Day T22, Cam Davis back in T40.
Yeah, it's been a popular spot for Cam Davis. Aside from his win, I think at the 3M, you just see him in that sort of T40 zone often. And Scotty, best of the Aussies, really needed that higher finish to be able to get himself into the top 50, because he was just inside the top 70 to make it. A good finish for him. Minwoo and J-Day, again, good without being really in contention.
Yep. Minwoo is now eliminated, so that's the end of his season. He will go into the preseason once these last couple of Cups finals finishes. But Cam snuck through, was in 49th position, so he made it through to this weekend. As you say, Scotty and Jason Day, who has been pretty solid all year. Saw some photos of him in some Melbourne gear again today. He's looking pretty fit.
Yeah, you like the Melbourne gear, don't you? But he's definitely been working, I think, on the fitness and the conditioning. All of the guys do on tour now, or 98% of them do. It just shows you how competitive it is and that it's such a multifaceted approach to the game now. In terms of Minwoo, it'd be interesting to see what he does. I suspect he'll go and play some events on the DP World Tour if he can. And then hopefully he's getting primed for a big season back home here in Australia. See the announcement that the BMW Australian PGA Championship will be played at RQ again next year. So that will be this year and next year. And I think that's 5 years straight now that Royal Queensland will have hosted the PGA Championships.
And is that the 25th year of being in Queensland for the PGA Championship?
Oh, is that right?
I think
that could be true, because it was at Royal Pines for quite a period before that. And I'm just trying to remember where it was before Royal Pines.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I saw somewhere it was either 25 or something like that. But someone on X was complaining about the fact that the PGA of Australia are not taking it around Australia, which is a common thread. Follow the money.
Yeah, and I'm sure probably Events Queensland or Tourism and Events Queensland are tipping in a fair bit of money to keep it local here. Just the same as what we see with the South Australian government and the LIV tournament. Now that they've got that locked, it's been such a boon for their economy. You find it hard to believe they'll give it away too easily. But no doubt Melbourne will try and swoop and take it away like they did the Grand Prix.
Yeah, absolutely will. I'd love to see them support Adelaide now. I guess it's probably dependent on whether or not Melanaskis gets another term, but they took a risk on the event. LIV also happened to help them out. Adelaide's a great spot for us. As we've said previously, it's in such a central location, easy to get into from most of Australia. The city's brilliant. I'd love to see that there and see that continue to grow. But let's move on to LIV at the Greenbrier. That was a pretty jam-packed leaderboard for the full 3 days. We saw Cam on 2 go low. I think he was 8 under. It didn't finish off strong. He was leading for a lot of the round, and then Rahm took control. But it's probably, like, in terms of leaderboard, it's probably one of the best leaderboards we've seen on LIV.
That's right. And we even saw Blandy make eagle and take the lead at one stage there on Sunday when the final rounds. I think it was a juiced up event, this one. What was your sort of take and read on the crowds?
Yeah, it's not incredible, is it? Like they're just, I don't know, they're not getting the support in the US still. So I'm glad to see that the production of events there is happening for next year. I'm also not convinced that we should be going to places like the Greenbrier at this time of year. It looks really hot, sweaty. Being in that similar time zone as what the PGA Tour is doing as well. To me, West Coast golf would be perfect.
And we have
weather.
We have talked about this before on the pod where picking their marks in the US is going to be really important. PGA Tour used to have an event at the Greenbrier, so it's playing in the PGA Tour's either history or backyard, however you want to talk to it. The crowds around the playoff hole, like it looked fairly well populated around the playoff and during the playoff. But then when you spread that out a bit more across the course and across multiple groups, you did get a sense that it was a fairly mediocre crowd in attendance. But the golf made up for it, and so it was certainly great watching, particularly, as we said, having Brooksy and Rahm fight it out, go into a sudden death playoff to win it.
Yep, absolutely. It was really good. Just even seeing Kokrak, like a little bit of a cameo up there. Who else we had his highest finish for his season, up to around 36th position. I think he finished 2 under.
What do you think's going to get another wild card?
I think he does. I think he gets 2 years. It's pretty unlikely that he's going to do anything. Like I don't think he's going to win. Don't think he's even going to compete, really. But I think it's worth. He's shown enough improvement and dedication that I don't think it's doing any harm having him there. Just compare it to Swafford, for example. No one cares about the cellar dwellers, on which, regardless of the tournament, they just have no effect. So it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, just having him there, because it still brings that interest. If he does catch fire at one point and gets into contention, I think the payoff there from a marketing dollars perspective is why it's worth investing in him. If Hudson Swafford was to finish top 5, top 10, no one would care.
No, it wouldn't be a storyline at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's what makes it worth keeping him for another year.
Yeah, I think that's a well-made point. And if he was to top 10 or even podium, can you imagine it would certainly be a very topical storyline within golf media and the world of. And so I think that's a good analysis of the situation. What's the risk in keeping him there? It's probably pretty low. They wouldn't be paying him very much in comparison to the other players. Give him 2 years, see what he can make of it in the second year. And then I suspect if he doesn't do anything in the second year, he's probably cut.
Yeah. That seems relatively fair. But yeah, I think the thing is, unless you're winning and unless you're winning often, no one in golf creates storylines. Like Scotty is this year, he's won 7 times. Xander has won 2 majors. McIlroy was a little bit of a storyline on the weekend because he finished pretty much dead last, but that's it. DeChambeau is a good one. He was close to a top 10, maybe he finished 11th or something this week. No one cares.
No, it doesn't register.
He's not winning. No.
It's a pretty tough standard. It's a high bar to meet just to get some coverage.
It is. I think that really highlights, in terms of needle movers and Tiger being the golfer that he was, you can see why the tour is clinging on for dear life and trying to jam that narrative down everyone's throats, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even now, the fact that he has the interest that he has now, I think you probably do have to take what you can get, because he does move the needle. And yes, it just doesn't. Anyone else just does not matter unless they're winning and winning all the time. It's just no one cares.
No, that's right. There's more interest in Tiger coming DFL than Cam Smith winning a LIV event.
What did you think of Cam's form?
It was good to see him back competitive, driving the ball better. I think that's definitely something that has been his Achilles heel and he'll need to improve on to get back to his best. He said the course fit his eye, and I mean, when you play yourself, there are courses that you feel comfortable on the tee on, and there are other courses you don't feel comfortable on the tee on. So it was good to see him really ramp up the performance there. Couldn't keep going with the big boys when it mattered on Sunday and just ran out of steam, but some good signs there.
So we had him, we had Rahm recently, we had Koepka also all speaking about their relative disappointment in their years. Koepka was early on in this week, he was talking about the fact that even though he'd won this year, he was not happy at all with his major performances and talking about that consistency that he's trying to get out of his game. There's no doubt that when Koepka's on, he's on, but it is certainly a well-made point from his perspective. I think to be truly world-class, you want to be consistent like a Rahm or a Rory as a rule, or even Scotty Scheffler now.
Yeah, still hard to argue with his record though, isn't it?
No.
5 majors, 5 LIV. He's got more LIV wins now than he does PGA Tour wins. Although if you go to Wikipedia, he has 9 PGA Tour wins. So they're classing the 5 majors as PGA Tour victories. But he's an enigma, Brooks. Yes. And he's someone that can be really engaging in terms of fan attention. But then also he can be very dismissive and almost cold, can't he? He's that enigmatic figure within the game.
Yeah, he certainly is. Ripper had a great weekend. They all played pretty well and they led for a lot of the tournament. Obviously, the final day couldn't get back towards that top of the podium, but it's good to see them playing well.
Definitely, and a 2-shot lead to start Sunday, and then they extended that to 4 shots. So they looked in prime position to take out that exemption to the first round in the team championship at Maridoe and Dallas later in September. But Smash were just too good, coming over the top of Ripper off the back of Kokrak and Koepka, both tied for the lead there late in the final round. They'll still be happy with the result, although disappointed that they weren't able to get the win and the bye.
Yeah, they had the 3 top 10s, Leash in T4, Kirby T6, Smith T8.
And
really
Jones
good result.
Was he? So they just got beaten by, I guess, a hotter team on the day.
Yep, even Gooch was playing well, wasn't he?
Good.
Pretty good rounds.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that looks like a pretty solid team, the Rippers. It doesn't look like there will be, I can't imagine there being any changes next year. I don't know anyone that would be available that they'd be looking to recruit, to be honest.
No, it's hard to see them making any changes. I do think if there was someone available, shall we say, that Jonesy's spot would be up for grabs, so an Adam Scott or a Minwoo, they'd gladly bring into the team. But not likely to happen, and so they'll probably have a similar setup for next year.
Yep. All right, let's look at the season standings for the PGA Tour. So coming into this week, we've got the BMW Championship. So we've got Keegan, Cam Davis, which we spoke about, and Nick Dunlap all sneaking in. So they're in. Some interesting outs. So Tom Kim didn't make the 50. Outside of the extra money he's would have made this year, it's not going to affect him too much because he should still qualify for the events next year, being a top 30 in the world. I think he's 18 or 19 at the moment. Mm-hmm. But some other players, Mackenzie Hughes, Mav McNeely, Spieth is another big name that's outside of that top 50, which is interesting.
Yeah, look, it's the sort of big boys versus the bubble boys. Young Tom Kim, missed out narrowly, took a big chunk out of the green. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
Certainly some question marks over his pace of play. So a little bit of a controversial figure in the game is Tom Kim. But it's good to see Cam Davis just sneak in. He'll need a really good week this week at the BMW to make Eastlake, but not beyond him. He needs to do better than his sort of T40 zone.
Yeah, as we've said a lot, like he's someone that can do that because he's relatively streaky. Form comes out of nowhere.
Correct.
So Tom Kim, I must say, like he has got a very impressive resume and he's in that same class as Thorbjornsen. So I think it would have been in the same graduating class, 3 or 4 professional wins, been on tour for a couple of years, got his tour card locked up.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much majors, like gone deep in majors. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
I think
he's probably the leader of that cohort.
I have to say, Lampreche, he's made it into the finals, the Corn Ferry finals, but he would be very happy with his start to his professional career at this stage. I think he's down in, he's like 135th or something on the Corn Ferry Tour.
Really grinding it.
Really grinding. So we've got those inside and outside of the, was it 24? Was it top 24? Or a lock for a season. Brendan Steele's snuck back in there. Kokrak with his strong performances inside now. Sebastian Munoz, outside Puig, Tringali, and GMAC.
Yeah, an expensive cold and flu tablet for GMAC to have taken. So he is in the open zone, not necessarily the drop zone, but it means he's at risk of being traded. I think we discussed this maybe last week. Would Brooksy actually trade him, or is he happy with where he's at? I would say the fact that he's even around that 24 mark is surprising to me. I don't feel like he's had any real standout performances, or that we've covered him much in terms of the pod and where he's finished in the LIV standings. But anyway, he'll have plenty to play for at the Chicago event, that's for sure.
Yep. And then in that really dangerous zone, the relegation zone, Perez had a decent week and he's pulled himself outside of that. Oh, no, these guys are actually still down in there, aren't they? Pat Perez, Harold Varner.
So he's in, Perez and HV3 and Poulter, they're inside the open zone. So they're not
open zone.
Yeah, they're inside the open zone, but on the bubble of going into the drop zone. Poulter obviously can't be relegated as a captain. Ludicrous rule that when there's three playing captains of the one team, but it is what it is. Pat Perez probably playing for his career, really, because if he drops out of LIV, there is really probably nowhere for him to go, because he certainly won't be welcome back on the PGA Tour, and I don't think his game would be in shape to qualify players over 50, so it would certainly be the only other pathway. Lots to play for Perez in that regard.
He doesn't look like someone who's going to grind on the Asian Tour either, does he?
No, that's right. And we know that he's separated from his former wife's eyes, so he probably does need every dollar he can get.
Was it year one, wasn't it? He wasn't playing very well, but the four aces, the generational four aces, kept on propping him up, didn't they? With all the prize money they kept on winning.
That's right. He made huge bank whilst playing pretty average golf.
Out inside that particular cut or outside, so one's in danger. Scott Vincent, Kieran is also in a bit of trouble there. Brandon Grace, which I thought was maybe surprising in terms of his ability, and Laurie Cantor's down there. Have we got any clarity on whether or not reserves or those guys can actually be relegated when they're not actually even?
It's surprising, isn't it? I would imagine he is in the drop zone. So the way that I understand it is that he'd have to make a choice to play in the promotions event at the end of the year to see if he can get in or not.
But do you think, I think that's bullshit, to be honest, because they're not like actually on as a player. They're like reserves. So if they're counting him in the guys in the relegation zone, like it means one of them is getting away with it, isn't it? Like someone is not in the relegation zone because he is.
I think that's a well-made point. And as you say, Kieran Vincent's also in trouble as well. So both the Vincent boys are at risk, and it'll be an interesting finish to the season at LIV Chicago, and then the promotions event that we'll see, I think, in December.
Yep. So they've got roughly a month off now, and then they have the back-to-back weeks to finish. Not hearing any rumblings anywhere at all in terms of what's going to be occurring next year in terms of player movement. We haven't seen anything more on the schedule after that leak a couple of weeks ago. No. It seems, again, we've spoken about it a couple of times, but it seems a little flat at the moment, just with this information not being shared. So it's going to be, well, when we finally start seeing a little bit of activity, you're going to hope it's going to be solid activity.
Yeah, if you're Yasser or Norman, you're thinking we've got to make some waves here. We've got to have at least another 2 or maybe even 3 big signings. We've got to make something happen to keep the momentum going. It does feel like LIV is in a bit of a flat spot at the moment and the weeks are just rolling by. So they need that next shot in the arm to build some more momentum going into next year.
They certainly do. Speaking about, if we're talking about the schedule a little bit for next year, I think to me, like we can't keep having these events that are completely clashing in terms of finishing time. And I think given that the PGA Tour is, I guess, the primary tour in the US, they've already set their schedule for next year, just needs to make the adjustment and just, I know they don't want to like cede to PGA Tour, but I think it's in their best interest to do that, because if you're outside of the same finishing zone or finishing time, regardless if it's at early morning or if it's in a different time zone, you're going to get that overflow viewer. So PGA Tour fans who might switch on to watch a bit of LIV, You're going to get the LIV fans who are also wanting to watch PGA Tour as well. So you're going to make them happy. I don't know. I just don't see any benefit to competing directly head-to-head against the PGA Tour.
No, and it might be a temporary strategy where you do vacate and shift to a different time zone to build more of a fan base in the US until the point in time where you feel like you really can compete or maybe even outcompete. So they're just, I think they'll be looking at where the sponsor dollars are, where the advertising dollars are, and the time slots that suit for that. It's obviously very complex and truly above our pay grade, but I think the points that you make are sensible points, and we'll see how they go with it.
Now, in that drop zone, we've got Laurie Cantor, who's a reserve. Ben Campbell is in 57th. He's also a reserve. Bubba Watson is a captain. So he's voluntarily inside that drop zone as well. So you've got essentially 3 players inside that drop zone, and also AK and Swafford to consider. So you've got at least two positions there that are saving 2 others from being relegated.
That's right.
I think that should be, you'd want to encourage a little bit of turnover, wouldn't you?
I think you absolutely do. And it creates interest. There's a lot of criticism that there's nothing for them to play for on LIV. It means nothing, all that sort of stuff. But as you and I have spoken about before, that promotions event was great last year, and you could really feel that it did mean something. So leaning into that and really making the relegation a significant thing is something that LIV should be doing, and it's been also one of the criticisms from the OWGR around the closed shop that they're running. And when you go through those people in the drop zone that you've just gone through there, you can see that there's some validity to that argument.
All right, let's switch across to this week. So on the PGA Tour, we've got the big BMW Championship. That is going to Colorado for the first time in quite some time.
Yeah, Castle Pines, a Nicklaus design course. Elevation changes will be particularly prominent in this one. And it's been the former host of the International, which was a modified Stableford event on the PGA Tour from 1986 to 2006. A bit of interest in the course. Be interesting to see how it plays. I'm told that Peyton Manning, no relative to me, but nonetheless made an ace on his first round as a member here. A bit of an interesting fun fact for you there around Castle Pines. But Viktor Hovland, defending champion, be looking to continue his good form from this week and see if he can go back-to-back and the BMW.
Yeah, so we are at altitude, so we're going to see the ball go a lot further than it normally does. The course itself is just over 8,100 yards. So it's long on paper, but the word on the street is it's going to be like a toy course for these guys, like a pitch and putt.
The rollback guys will be just filling their diapers, won't they? Filling their nappies with hand-wringing about the ball going too far and all that sort of stuff. We'll see how it goes. I think sometimes these things are over-exaggerated and they're not as bad as expected, but at altitude there's always a risk.
I think if it does live up to what it's predicted, this is just typical PGA Tour setup, really, isn't it?
100%.
Exactly what you want for the finals.
Bomb and gouge.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, so the top 50 are there. Have you got any tips there?
Oh, I'm gonna go with Viktor or Xander. I think Viktor sentimentally, but Xander, I just think he's just looking so good. But of course, you never discount Scotty either. He's always thereabouts. If he has a hot
there's a few
week,
signs.
it's all over.
There's a few signs that he's not super happy. We saw him getting a little bit angry in that bunker, showing a bit of emotion there. And he's speaking pre-tournament last week about maybe not so happy with the season-long race and talking about his neck a little bit. So maybe there's a little bit going on behind the scenes there with Scotty. So he might be at risk here. Possibly,
but I think he's the kind of guy that is very good at keeping things in perspective, and it wouldn't surprise me if he gets away for a few days from the course and resets. I saw a statistic that he's had 14 top 10s so far this year. So what's he played? Maybe 18 times. and 14 of them have been top 10. So just incredible consistency, incredibly high-class golf. And I'm sure he'll be thereabouts, but I'll stick with Vic.
Yeah, I would probably take Xander.
Yeah.
I'd probably expect a turnaround from Rory as well. Although he hasn't been playing well the last couple of weeks.
He's saving himself for the race to Dubai.
Race to Dubai? You don't think he can sneak the FedEx Cup from here?
No, I think he's won too many of those already.
Once you think that's it. That's it. He's put the clubs away for this event.
Yeah.
He's won just as many races to Dubai, hasn't he?
There's a bit more sentimental value. He started on the European Tour and is an advocate of the European Tour, but it's better to play in the US.
Yeah, maybe he's looking for the Irish Open. It's probably what he's looking to take there.
That's right.
Yeah. The other major event, the DP World Tour, we've got the Danish Golf Championship. Eddie Pepperell's playing, Micheluzzi, Jason Skuvner, Thomas Bjorn, who's going to be back in the previous Ryder Cup captain. He's going to be playing, which I think he normally does when he gets up into that Nordic region.
Yep.
And then really it's probably the Nikolai Højgaard and the local hopes.
Yeah, the local hopes. I don't know whether I'll be tuning in too much to this one. I hope the Aussies go well. There's quite a few of them there, but as you say, Micheluzzi and Scrivener are probably the main two. And I always have an interest in how the vocal LIV hater Eddie Pepperell goes. He's shown himself to be on the wrong side of a few things on X. Certainly generated more interest in how he performs on the golf course for me as well.
Yeah, he has. He's been relatively controversial considering he was so well thought. He seems to think through things a lot, but certainly he's got that blind spot against LIV, really, doesn't he? Even particularly with him being quite good friends with Laurie Cantor. Sort of doesn't even sway him, really.
No, and I guess I just put it down to the pressure that LIV has put the DP World Tour under and relegating it now to a feeder tour. I think you're silly to argue otherwise, that it's anything but a feeder tour to the PGA Tour now. So that would be very disappointing for those who are passionate European Tour players and supporters. And so I get that, but the golf ecosystem's far more complex than LIV bad, DP World Tour good, and there were a lot of reasons LIV was able to become what it was, and maybe Eddie should be looking at some of the former leadership of the DP World Tour and having some of that frustration directed towards them rather than necessarily LIV. Yes,
and then probably the event of the week, we have the Women's Open at the Old Course in St Andrews.
Yeah, it should be a cracker. I'm really interested to see how the women go at St Andrews. I can't remember seeing them play there before. Have they played before at St Andrews? Yeah. So it should be a fantastic event. All the big names will be there. Lilia Vu's the defending champion. You'll have Corpuz, Buhai, Lydia Ko coming off the gold medal at the Olympics. Yuka Sasso won a major so far this year. Rose Zhang's been playing well. And then hopefully the Aussies can give it a shake. It wouldn't surprise me to see Minjee do really well here. And Hannah Green's been in good form, possibly could have gone better at the Olympics. She showed some good form there. And then the other sort of usual suspects that we've seen on the LPGA Tour from Australia in the likes of Steph Kirikou, Aaron Avid and Gabby Ruffles. That's a pretty strong contingent. And I think also three-time Women's Open winner Kerry Webb's also going to pull out the clubs, dust off the clubs and have a go. Definitely a great event, as you say, probably event of the week, and hopefully it'll be good viewing for us as well in a nice time slot.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The weather looks relatively good in terms of rain. There's a little bit of rain, I think, Thursday, Friday, particularly in the mornings, but there is at this stage the forecast for the wind to get up in the afternoon. So we may see little bit of a weather-affected draw and leaderboard, but it'll be really interesting to see how they play the Old Course.
Definitely, and that's one of the interesting aspects of the women's game is it's not about the power game, although some of them are certainly getting it out there, but it's much more about accuracy and consistency, and it's great. It'll be great to see them manoeuvre their way around the Old Course.
Now, news for the week. Probably the biggest article we saw come out was from Jaime Diaz at the Golf Digest. claiming sources saying that Rahm would 100% give back the money to the Saudis if he had the opportunity, and that he made a big mistake. It seemed that it didn't get that, or his sources was third-party, fourth-party sources, and didn't ask the camp.
This is what passes for journalism these days. So it doesn't seem to pass the mustard either. I think Rahm's response hosed it down pretty quickly. So it's just more of this crap that we've been seeing, people muckraking and looking to create stories out of Rahm's alleged or supposed discontent with his decision. Seriously, is anyone giving back 300 to 600 million? I just can't see it happening. What, just to go back to the PGA Tour? No way. Total garbage.
Yeah, it is. And that's just the media landscape, really, isn't it? And probably it's driven a little bit by social media and the I guess the need for clicks and need for viewerships, and I guess the fact that all the algorithms work off of this engagement farming style of content, which is certainly highly controversial, which leads us into Country Club Snob, which was certainly like an anonymous parody account, really. Yep. He was outed, or what they would call it, doxed by an assistant pro who works at his club.
It certainly captured the interest of golf Twitter on X, that's for sure. Look, I don't know if I followed Country Club Snob, but certainly I saw a fair bit of his stuff in my feed. And then all of a sudden it just exploded that he had been outed or doxed by this fellow at his home club, happened to be, as you say, the assistant pro. And then people were coming out on both sides of the argument saying that there was no place for that sort of vitriol that Country Club Snob was propagating on X. And then other people, of course, saying if you can't understand that it's a parody account and that there's humour and sarcasm involved, what hope have you got? So I did think he had 30-odd thousand followers, and now those people who were enjoying his content no longer have access to it because he's gone and deleted all these social media accounts.
Yeah. There's been a big trend. There's a big, certainly through COVID and after COVID, there was a big trend of these anonymous style accounts popping up in all industries. They were all guy accounts essentially. So you had a car dealership guy. There's a whole bunch of them, and they got really popular. Club Pro guy was certainly prior to that, but there's a whole lot of them, and they've all essentially been doxed in a similar fashion. So I think it's just people's nature. And now in terms of doxing, I think traditionally doxing would be like revealing someone's personal address, their contact phone numbers, that
Location.
Sort of thing.
Yep.
Location. This is a little bit different to me because his name was revealed, but then all of the sleuthing that was done was all online available information. So this guy seems to be in that sort of marketing consulting style of background. His profile was all over LinkedIn. They found articles where he's referring to his home club that were tied to his personal name. So pretty much I think all that was revealed potentially was his name and maybe his home club, but it wasn't a real doxing from my perspective. And
not in the word.
Not in the pure sense. So I didn't have too much of a problem with that. And I think the thing now is that that person, or Joe, I think it was, would certainly know with his backgrounds that putting anything out on the internet is probably going to be open to public domain eventually, particularly if you're going to be controversial like he was. So I think it's fine. Certainly it was a parody account. I had no problem with it, but there were some posts there where he got relatively personal, just mocking other participants on X. And I think that's definitely going to lead to some sort of retribution. So
yeah, live by the sword, die by the sword. I only had sort of one interaction with him. He did come after me on a particular comment or whatnot that I made, and I just responded back with humour. And it seemed to totally disarm him because the next thing his reply was, oh, thank God, someone who finally fucking understands humour on this platform. So I didn't have too much to do with him, but that was my sort of interaction with Country Club Snob.
I think what could have happened if he handled it differently, if he just did go ahead and delete his account and disappear, if he could have just said, oh, yep, you got me, he would have blown over very quickly and he could have continued on with the account. Yeah. But I think that's the lesson really is if you put anything online, expect it to be uncovered.
I think that's a wise lesson, Jake. Now, we're also interested in an update from you on the world rankings. So what's Rank Eagle telling us at the moment in terms of
not much really. It's
the various
there isn't a
world
lot
rankings?
not a lot of movement. I think probably the main sort of looking at the trends this morning was seeing Max Homer and Jordan Spieth both dropping relatively large, particularly with the strokes gains rankings. So with Data Golf, with Tuga, they both dropped 30 odd positions roughly. So Spieth is in danger, particularly across those ones of falling outside the top 100, which is very surprising.
It's amazing, isn't it? Could have been and may still be a generational golfer, but he really just had that 3, 4, 5-year burst, and then it's been slim pickings since. And then, of course, Max Homer's slide will be just devastating for the NLU fanboys and the other golf media lovers of Max.
Yeah, and then outside of that, the top 100 is probably as diverse as it's been. We have across 3 of the ranking systems a player from the Korn Ferry Tour appearing in the top 100, which is the first time for a while. And I think the other thing I was thinking of, I'm tracking 706 players in the system for the last 2 or 3 months. Now, what that is made up of is essentially the top 500 across the 4 ranking systems. So there's enough crossover where there's 200 players between the systems who don't appear in them all. So I think, again, speaking about how outside of the LIV stuff, the OWGR and is relatively accurate. That's the thing I think where I'm at. It's outside of the LIV guys not being tracked. All systems are pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, and I guess it's good to have the ability now just to have that visibility across the different ranking systems and to be able to look at it at a glance and get a sense of where the consistencies are and where the variances are. Mate, where can we go? Is it rankeagle.com?
That's it.
Over to rankeagle.com and you'll be able to get all the info you need about the current rankings across the various ranking systems.
Yep, absolutely. Now, to finish off, we have got a Trump golfer. It's not Donald.
Apparently, his eldest granddaughter will be playing college golf for the University of Miami. So, certainly has access to some pretty good practice courses and practice facilities, given the courses that sit within the Trump golf stable. Keep an eye out for her in future years.
I believe she was the original YouTube Trump golfer.
Ah, there you go.
She appeared on, maybe it was GM Golf or maybe it was maybe Grant Horvath. One of those two that she played around with them. She looks pretty decent.
Yeah.
Looks pretty like a decent golfer. So
might do a breaking 50 with Bryson.
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate that to happen.
Yeah, maybe it's on the content cards for Bryson.
It's the first multi-generational breaking 50.
Yep. That'd be an interesting little episode for Bryson to do.
Yeah, it would. All right, I think that wraps up the episode.
Certainly does. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week.
We'll see you later.